violence and terror are clearly Israel's main and only currency. There is no red line for Israel, no law it will not breach, no norm it will not trample, no act too depraved or barbaric for its occupying army and settler militias. Illegal occupation in all of its manifestations must come to an end, and the Palestinian people must be free. Mr. President, it has been nearly 300 days since Israel launched its genocidal war on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip, a war that has gravely breached all tenets of international humanitarian and human rights law, a war that has flagrantly violated the UN Charter, including the cardinal principle regarding the sovereignty and territorial integrity of states, a war that threatens international peace and security. Yet Israel is being permitted to wage this war in broad daylight with no restraints and no consequences. It is doing so willfully and wantonly, in spite of this Security Council's resolutions, in spite of the ICJ provisional measures orders, in spite of the global demands for a ceasefire. And still, the Council is failing its duty to impose a ceasefire and bring a halt to this depravity. Every day brings more horror, loss, and suffering for our people as Israeli occupying forces massacre Palestinian civilians, assassinate officials, kill humanitarian workers, medical personnel, and journalists, abduct civilians, and torture and rape them in Israeli jails, bomb and destroy Palestinian homes and infrastructure, and attack UN premises, including UNRWA schools, sheltering millions of forcibly displaced civilians who are being deliberately starved and denied access to medical care and the most basic needs for human subsistence and dignity by an occupier mercilessly chasing and hunting them down, repeatedly displacing them as they desperately search for safety in a place where no one and nowhere is safe. It is not only a catastrophic humanitarian crisis, it is an existential crisis. And today, yet another Palestinian official has been assassinated by Israel. As pronounced by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian leadership condemns in the strongest terms the assassination of former Palestinian Prime Minister and head of the political bureau of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran today. A national day of mourning has been declared in Palestine, and we solemnly acknowledge the expressions of condolence and the global condemnations of this act of terror. Moreover, we unequivocally condemn the criminal breach of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the Islamic Republic of Iran, as we condemn the repeated breaches by Israel of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Lebanon, the Syrian Arab Republic, and Yemen. And this includes yesterday's brazen attack on Beirut. We call again with utmost urgency on the Security Council, the General Assembly, and all law-abiding, peace-loving nations to act forthwith to bring a halt to these horrific criminal Israeli aggressions against the Palestinian people and on our region. We demand accountability for this assassination, as we have continually demanded accountability for the wanton murder and injury of over 130,000 Palestinian children, women, and men across these past 300 days of horror and hell in Gaza, and call for accountability for all of Israel's criminal policies and practices in our territory across the decades. Likewise, we reiterate our calls for accountability for all of Israel's breaches of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of states in the region, including the State of Palestine. The UN Charter must be upheld not solely in words, but also in deeds. The failure to hold Israel accountable has permitted and enabled these crimes and further emboldened Israeli government officials, military commanders, and settler extremists to escalate their reign of terror against defenseless Palestinian civilians all across the territory of the State of Palestine, in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, as well as across the region. Mr. President, violence and terror are clearly Israel's main and only currency. Not international law, not diplomacy, not mediation, not respect for human life. There is no red line for Israel, no law it will not breach, no norm it will not trample, no act too depraved or barbaric for its occupying army and settler militias, and no child, woman, or man off limits, even babies considered legitimate targets. The Israeli Prime Minister and his coalition of government extremists and military commanders believe there will never be a cost for their crimes. They believe they can literally get away with murder, get away with genocide against the Palestinian people. They believe it because it has been possible until now. No resolution, no ICJ order, no ceasefire calls have been respected. No demand for protection of civilians and humanitarian access has been heeded, and still no consequences whatsoever for Israel. This has gone on even as the Palestinian people have tragically live-streamed the genocide for all the world to see, believing that somehow the world would act to save the over 2 million human lives endangered in Gaza. Every plea for help, including in this council, has been made in the belief that the world would act in respect of the rule of law, our shared moral obligations, and our collective humanity. Yet this gruesome aggression continues, surpassing 40,000 Palestinians killed, the majority women and children, over 91,000 injured in attacks by Israeli occupying forces, nearly the entirety of Gaza's population uprooted, and the decimation of the Gaza Strip and trauma of the entire population. At the same time, in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, Israeli occupying forces and settler terrorists continue their violent raids, killing at least 569 Palestinians, including children. And Israel's illegal colonial settlement campaign not only continues as we speak, but is intensifying as it feverishly pursues its vowed annexationist aims, seeking to forever obstruct the Palestinian people's right to self-determination and independence and to destroy the two-state solution. Mr. President, members of the Council, until when? Absent any form of accountability, any serious mobilization and sanctions, including a halt to arms transfers, to pressure an end to these crimes, Israel is proving every single day that it will continue to act as a rogue state. The assassination today and all the crimes preceding it and that have followed it in the ensuing hours prove this beyond the shadow of a doubt. Israel openly declares its intentions to carry on, defying the Council and the international community as a whole, brazenly carrying on with its scorched earth killing and destruction spree in Gaza, vowing to further entrench its colonial annexationist occupation and its racist, discriminatory, hateful policies against the Palestinian people and recklessly escalating tensions. It is blatantly attempting to destabilize the entire region and provoke an all-out war in the Middle East, with dangerous repercussions not only for the region, but far beyond. The international community must confront this reality and act to stop these crimes and aggressions. There is no right that Israel can claim to justify these war crimes and crimes against humanity. The right to peace and security is the right of all states in the region and in every region of the world. It is not an exclusive right of Israel. Moreover, it is a fact that Israel is an illegal occupant in the state of Palestine and possesses no rights whatsoever in our territory and over our people. This was unequivocally determined by the ICJ in the seminal advisory opinion it rendered just days ago on the 19th of July. This ruling must be respected and enforced. Israel has no sovereignty rights and no right to self-defense in a territory in which it is illegally present in grave breach of every rule of international law. This illegal occupation in all of its manifestations must come to an end, and the Palestinian people must be free. Mr. President, Israel has been the oppressor, tormentor, and murderer of Palestinians for decades, and it is the long-standing destabilizer of our region. It must be stopped. The obligations of the Security Council and General Assembly, the obligations of all states, including the high contracting parties to the Fourth Geneva Convention, are to act forthwith to bring an end to this unlawful, abhorrent situation. The lives of millions of civilians are at stake in Gaza and the rest of occupied Palestine and throughout the region. We appeal to the international community to act immediately. First and foremost, this Security Council, as per its charter duty, to maintain international peace and security. It must act to protect the Palestinian people and to prevent a regional war against it at this moment of clear and present danger. The international community has a choice to make. Let it be for peace and security. Do not let Israel drag us all to the abyss. I thank you, Mr. President, and esteemed members of the Council for your attention, and on behalf of the State of Palestine and her people, implore you to act.